Yo, what's up guys, welcome back to another video. This is a reaction to how poor people survive in the US, and I see it's got a lot of dislikes, this video. I guess it's quite a touchy subject to say the least and all that, but I don't know, like I do a lot of reactions to the good things in countries and stuff, and I feel like the US and the UK are quite similar in like ways of life, not ways of life, but just like the standard of living is a lot higher. So it's a very good standard of living compared to other places in the world. Obviously, you got a lot of other countries that are better as well or similar, but I just think it's quite a sort of a similar comparison because I don't know what the poverty rate is in the US and what it is in the UK, but I just assume it's a similar sort of level and all that. But I mean, I come from a pretty poor background, so I probably can relate to certain things, but I was never homeless or anything. So I mean, I don't know how, like, is this going to people who are homeless, or is it just people that like are under the poverty line and don't have sort of aren't able to have, what's it called? What's it called when you don't have things like you don't have hot water, or you don't have just certain things like that, just things that people should have, everyone should have. Because when I lived at home, I didn't even have hot water for a long time, or heating. That's why I like the cold. Where I live now, I hate when the heating's on because I never used to have heating. And I know that's an extreme, but I don't know. I don't like heating now. But things like that, I assume it's going to be kind of to do with that. But I don't know, to be honest. Maybe it's just going to be talking about other things. It's got a lot of dislikes. I don't know. Again, it's quite a touchy subject, so all of that makes sense. But yeah, if you want to see some more of my reactions, links are in the description to my Patreon. I say this in every video, but if you want to see reactions to completely different things that I can't post on YouTube, links are there. But let's jump into this and see how people survive. I'm going to assume it's things like welfare, because you have that in the UK. You have a thing called benefits, and you have other things for people with, like, say someone's got some kind of mental condition and they can't work or anything, they'll get extra benefits for that because they can't work and they have to do this or what, extra support and stuff. And yeah, but I'm assuming it's kind of similar in the US, but we're going to check this out and see. And yeah, let's jump into this.
How do the poor people survive in
How do the poor people survive in the United States? It's a weird way to put how the poor people. That sounds a bit mad.
United States? Perhaps when we think of living conditions in the United States, we imagine a functional and correct scenario where no one is in need of vital necessities, poverty, or hunger. No doubt, there will be some indignant or homeless people, but nothing extreme. After all, there are always lazy people wherever you go, and being one of the countries with the most solid economy in the world, the problem can't be that serious, right? But what if we told you that the United States has one of the scariest poverty rates in the world? This is not what we see firsthand when we think about the nation of the Stars and Stripes, which, although it is the richest nation on the planet and home to more millionaires than any other, is also one of the most unequal nations in the world. The United States is home to an average of 329 million people, of which nearly 40 million live in poverty, and 18 million of these 40 million live in extreme poverty, forced to survive in the most varied and unthinkable ways in a country full of wealth and economic strength. Do you know how these people manage? Have you heard of the term Fourth World? If you are interested in knowing more,
Fourth world? I've heard about third world. Fourth world?
stay with us.
Is it like when you live in a rich country, but so you live in a first world country, but then you don't have any of the advantages and stuff, maybe?
The United States has projected itself throughout history as a land of unparalleled equality and opportunity. That place in the world that other nations aspire to be like, and where millions of people migrate in search of opportunity and new beginnings. This is, in fact, the premise of the famous American Dream, defined by historian James T. Adams with the right that it should be better, richer, and fuller for all people, with opportunity for everyone according to their ability or their work, regardless of their social class or the circumstances from which they come. During the administration of former President Trump, the economy was experiencing record growth and strength not experienced since the 2008 crisis, and the unemployment rate was less than 4%. According to Trump himself, there has never been a better time to start living the American dream. But Does this dream correspond to the reality that millions of people live by day? Is it really a land of opportunity for all? Welcome to the fourth world. This little-known term refers to all those populations that, despite living in developed countries,
Look at that. This is a crazy view. I know this isn't in the US. This is somewhere in, I don't know where it is, to be honest, but you see this, and then you have these big buildings literally in the view. You got these ones literally next to it. That is crazy. See, when I see stuff like that, I think in South Africa there's like a town or a city where it's literally a split. On the left, it's like people with all functioning water systems, and it looks like a nice neighborhood. Right next to it, you've got the slums. They don't have any of that stuff, and it's literally a line, and you can just see the contrast like that. It just blows my mind how it's like that.
Trees experience conditions of precariousness, lack of protection, and social risk. Although this phenomenon is not limited to the United States, it is true that millions of people in this country are in need. But then, how do the poor survive in the United States? The answer is simple. They do it like anywhere else in the world, as best they can. The state of California is one of the areas of the country where this can be seen most clearly.
It's crazy.
California is a state of contrasts. Beaches, sunshine, developed cities, and owner of the sixth strongest economy in the world, yet there is no shortage of homeless areas. There are people who live in their cars, congregated in free parking lots where, in order to offer them a more dignified life, certain organizations put bathrooms, running water, and other services such as small kitchens for common use. These are all kinds of people, particularly seniors and retirees who simply can't afford housing and basic services, not just lazy, addicted, or idle, but people who work very hard as secretaries, nurses, computer scientists, or Uber drivers to earn a living. California.
Wait, is he saying these people do these jobs but don't have homes?
Addicted or idle, but people who work very hard as secretaries, nurses, computer scientists, or Uber drivers to earn a living. California is one of the most dynamic states in the world where unemployment is almost non-existent, but still, for many people, it is not enough to pay for housing. In Richmond, Virginia, not too many miles from the nation's capital, 1 in 4 people live below the poverty line.
What?
The laws and conditions in Richmond are very harsh in this regard. In states like this one, a landlord can demand the eviction of a tenant if he is only 5 days late in payment. Forced evictions have become routine for the local police and average 3,000 per year and 10 per day, so that cheap hotels with rooms of only 10 square meters are the daily reality for thousands of these evicted people.
What?
In states like this, it is not even a matter of getting a new home as soon as you manage to stabilize your situation. Unthinkable in other places, in Richmond, potential landlords can access people's records thanks to public databases on the internet. Any kind of eviction record makes it very difficult to be accepted in the future. Appalachia, in the eastern part of the country, is of great importance in the fight against poverty in the United States. Once famous for its coal production and with almost all of its mines closed, Appalachia is a rural area where it is often said that the American dream has been lost.
See, I have heard about this sort of region definitely the most in terms of poverty and stuff.
This situation is not new to the region. As early as 1964, during the election campaign, President Lyndon B. Johnson visited Appalachia and was horrified by the poverty to the point of publicly declaring war on such precarious living conditions. For this reason, he introduced a series of new legislation aimed at eradicating poverty through social assistance, such as the Economic Opportunity Act, the Food Stamp Act, and the Social Security Act, which are still in force today. But the homeless emergency is happening in one of the most emblematic and busy cities in the country, Los Angeles? This may come as a surprise, and rightly so. No one would expect to be the place where poverty could be seen in all its starkness and horror, especially on Skid Row Street, a neighborhood of about 50 blocks where the largest concentration of homeless people in the world is located, and which has earned Los Angeles the title of Misery Capital of the United States, with its approximately 58,000 people living in old tents on sidewalks or under bridges. And it is not even the city with the largest number of evictees in the country, only the one where it is most evident. The largest is New York, with
What?
some 76,000 people who, however, at least have shelters and
Oh, I guess it's like in Skid Row, it's all just everyone's together.
refuges where they can spend the night. And although the American dream and the ideals it represents are the pillar of the nation, they are viewed with growing skepticism by a not inconsiderable number of people.
And being homeless in New York would be horror because of how cold it gets.
The lowest percentages of poverty by ethnicity are among the Asian and white populations, with rates of 12.3% and 12.4% respectively, while the most effective are the Black and Native American populations, with rates of 26.2% and 27.6% respectively. The statistics are much more troubling if we break them down by age. Some 9.3% of these homeless are seniors. According to the U.S. Department of Agriculture, food security is another major problem for the nation. Some 12.3% of the country's households have serious difficulties in providing all their members with the food they need to subsist. All these figures, data, and the experience of hundreds of people around the world reveal one thing. Even with one of the most solid and strongest economies on the planet, with abundant and modern cities and a multitude of social benefits, the United States harbors within its cities and borders some of the most alarming poverty figures in the world. The question now is, can it do anything to combat it? It has been more than half a century since President Johnson declared open war on poverty,
declares unconditional war on poverty in America,
and initiated more than 40 programs to address and combat it. For decades, several of these social assistance programs contributed to this goal. Although statistically, the numbers have declined, the recent increase in these figures in recent years, spurred in large by the COVID-19 pandemic, has managed to increase the number of people living in subhuman conditions in a very short period of time. Currently, along with many of President Johnson's initiatives, numerous initiatives are also being implemented to combat this social crisis, such as the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, or SNAP, dedicated to helping the thousands of people who subsist on vouchers or criminal justice reforms to combat harsh and rigid laws for these strata, as in the states of Virginia or California. However, opinions are ambivalent. Many people believe that increasing the number of subsidies and welfare payments is not a plausible solution, but rather a cause of the problem by making people dependent on outside assistance. Many advocate that the real solution would be to tackle the causes of poverty, such as social inequality or inflation. What do you think? Did you know that poverty rates were so high in the United States?
Damn. Well, the one that really took me was, again, I don't know if it's all facts, 'cause I don't know how reputable this channel is, but people working high-end jobs in California or in LA, not even living in homes because it's just the costs are too high. That is just wild. Imagine being a computer scientist. I don't know, again, he just maybe just be throwing out high-end jobs. But imagine being a computer scientist and not owning a house. I can also understand maybe some people just want to save the money. Maybe it's a different circumstance. They could pay for it, but they're like, you know what? I am happy saving for a few years, living in this car, or maybe they have like a caravan or whatever, and then getting a house. That makes sense. I guess you can save a lot of money. Like, it's a lot of money you can save, to be fair. But yeah, the more you know, right? And yeah, if you want to see more reactions like this, I don't know what else there is, let me know. But yeah, I guess this is the darker side to living in places that are a lot more expensive. It could be nice on the outside, but then you see stuff like this and it's like, okay, yeah, it's not as rosy as it seems. But yeah, this is this reaction, and until next time, like, subscribe, peace.